Okay, this is Wang Yue morning. Let's go back to his round 4 game. China have been doing so well, and one of the most difficult opposing teams was Russia in round 4. So let's see. On board 2, Alexander Grischuk, a 2-7-6-3, is playing black against Wang Yue 2-6-8-5. Wang Yue starts with knight f3, and we see a system which it seems Grischuk is immensely successful with against the English opening. He does a reverse Maroczy bind quite often with huge success. It seems every game I've seen he wins with this system. But if you try it out in blitz, or from my experience of trying this out in blitz, it seems often players with white will delicately expose the weakness of the d5 square with later manoeuvres like this to d5 and win the ending or something. Horrible things happen like that, but there must be some magic in the way Grischuk is playing this system. And let's see against white's particular configuration what he does. So he's got the reverse Maroczy bind set up. Bishop g2, bishop g7, knight ge7, and white actually here flings in h4, which might be quite controversial because it means the cover of g4 is a bit less ineffective. White cannot play h3. If the cover of g4 is less, that means potentially that bishop g4 is going to be strategically important for maybe taking on f3 later and a knight pouncing to d4. So this g4 weakness is of some significance already. But what about white's potential attacking initiative? Well, black simply plays here h6. And okay, h6 might be a target, and especially if black castles kingside. White plays bishop d2 as though he wants to set up a battery now on h6. Black doesn't want a castle here for the moment. He plays d6. And he's given himself access, of course, to that sensitive g4 square. After a3, he's not too worried about white playing b4 here. It's locked down at the moment. So he just plays bishop e6. And this gives the idea that maybe black's interested in playing d5 to liberate his game at some point. White's not too bothered about black playing d5 at this moment. He plays actually rook b1. And with this, of course, the intention of b4 looks as though it really is on the cards. Black does the lockdown now on b4 as well. So he's locking down on white playing d4 and b4, not just the Maroczy bind. The compromise of black's position is d5, but it doesn't seem as though there's going to be a slow manoeuvring plan in this game of a knight coming to reinforce this one on d5. The whole battle scene has changed really from white playing h4 quite radically. And now queen c1 looks a bit artificial just to attack h6. Rook c8, waiting now on the move, and it's a useful waiting move, putting the rook across from the queen, which might be useful in the future. White castles, another waiting move from black, b6, just reinforcing the queen side just in case ever b4 is on the cards. You might think, for example, maybe knight a2 b4, but it's rock solid it seems, but it is offering again a light square weakness. There's 2 light square weaknesses in black's camp. But it seems white here is more concerned now about black potentially liberating with d5. Perhaps b6, by reinforcing c5, is taking away key variations where white is attacking also c5 with his queen, or with the knight coming to e4. So it looks as though d5 might be more tempting for black in this scenario. But this next move seems highly committal. I'm pretty sure from an engine point of view, engines are not going to like this move actually, because it just looks visually so committal. The move played is e4, and this brings into very high profile the simple idea I mentioned earlier of bishop g4 taking on f3 and getting a knight in to d4. The only dark square protector of d4 would be this bishop on d2. That's virtually a strategic disaster in the making. this scenario, and it's common in ordinary Sicilians, this idea of dominating d5 from white, from white's perspective in the Sicilian defence. But here it's like black, which is going to have this easy strategic operation, and black pounces in with bishop g4, and so it really is on the cards now, this exchange on f3 and knight d4 at black's disposal anyway. Let's just quickly check, was this really committal move actually needed to play e4? e4 is given as one of the main moves really. So let's see if white plays a move like, let's give a token move. Is d5 really on the cards? It does seem as though this is annoying. b3, queen d7, is it so bad? It's a bit of a passive position. It's not really a position you'd really want with white that often, but it looks solid enough from an engine point of view though. If black even plays with d4, is this really a dominant position? Maybe white can now counter with b4. Okay, it looks about equal. Maybe this is an idea to try and get white to commit, get black to commit some pawns and then counterattack with b4 later. Seems like an idea. In this scenario, this lockdown seems to be paying a very high strategic price, this d4 square. Bishop g4 then is played rook e1, and now black doesn't have to castle, and he doesn't want to castle to lose that pawn. He just plays king f8, and white trades off knights, and this knight could have been useful for parrying d4 actually, so it's another piece which might have been strategically important here for d4 is traded off. Black takes that and seals up his own d5 square. After e takes d5, here black takes the option now out on bishop takes f3. It looks like a simple and powerful move here to play bishop takes f3 to get a horrible knight in on d4 now. White plays down bishop g4, which seems as though it's just asking for f5. Is f5 seen as a weakness in some respects? It's difficult to see how it can be exploited in this position. So it is used. And now, okay, we see often in Sicilian defence games as white, instructive games with a knight on d5. You can get a knight installed on d5 and get rid of the defender of that critical central square, then it's nearly a strategically won position. Black plays an ingenious move now to really encourage getting these bishops swapped off. I wonder if you can guess it. If I give you 10 seconds now, starting from now. Okay, and it's line opening, access paths, H file. It's G5, creating a very, very dangerous access path. The implications cannot be sometimes comprehended in advance by humans. When you create these access paths, the tactics, there's a wealth of tactics being generated here once this opens up, all the time to look out for. So it's very dangerous. But what can white do here? He can't really, can he really play h5 for instance? There's f4 maybe. He plays hg, but let's examine if he tried to lock down the king side. What can he do to lock down the king side? It seems almost he's castled into it, into black's attack. If he plays h5, the trouble with f4 will be giving up the e4 square. This might actually be a safer continuation for white than the game continuation. The bishop is holding up h5. f4 might not be that brilliant. Okay, in fact a move like bishop g4 looks as though white might be okay, holding the fort here. If the bishop's locked down in its own pawn chain, and this attack isn't too strong, the light square bishop could be very useful defensively. So perhaps surprisingly, controversially, white took on g5. Actually, h5 is actually a preferred engine move then, keeping things locked down. So here we do get that wealth of resources created now from this access path. Simple attacking fun chess is also often very, very dangerous for the opponent's king safety. Bishop takes g5 is played. There would seem to be a couple of options, queen e8 or queen d7. This idea of coming in here looks attractive. Queen e8, well, the bishop's on h5, so this looks good, queen d7, in the light of that. Just to play f4 now, potentially. Or maybe even other ideas, like queen f7, queen g6. In this position, queen e3 is played. And here, okay, maybe f4's out of the question because of g takes and the queen's protecting h3 here. Might be a bit controversial to play f4. Mind you, there is a rook move, but no, black chooses queen f7. And we see king g2. And now black a pawn down, but he wants to get rid of the dark square bishops. It would leave this huge knight on d4. And white has no pieces left to challenge that strategically. No knights or bishops will challenge this strategically soon. After bishop a4, bishop takes g5. Strategic operation completed. Is it worth a pawn? Yes, it is worth a pawn. And black already has a strong tactical move based on the knight. Irving Chernev, in one of my favourite, instructive games, the most instructive games of chess ever played, has this Sicilian game with white playing this pawn sacrifice to secure a knight on d5. This is from white's point of view, and he talks about the attack playing itself. Here the attack is playing itself as well. Can you guess a very strong forcing move that black has at his disposal here if I give you 10 seconds starting from now? Okay, rook h2 check. Nice. If king takes, then there's knight f3, winning the queen. So king f1 is played, and black can play the check again. The king's not escaping. And in this position, plays the check again and decides what to do here. And comes up with a simple move, creating the battery with queen h7. So now there's a threat of mating with rook h1 and queen h2. It looks so simple. White's h4 has backfired on his own king. It's been used to leverage to his king, but he didn't have to play hg. This looks like a disaster which didn't really need to happen. Can there be defensive resources really with such a humongous knight on d4 here against a hopeless bishop? What about the checks here? I guess they've been calculated to be running out. What if the king just tucks itself on h8? Let's have a quick look. So basically, if check, king g8, there's no queen e6, the knight's guarding e6. Queen g6, no, that's a queen sack. It's what the engine's recommending. That shows the position's desperate. So it is fairly desperate. Rook e3 somehow was mentioned as not mating white when I glimpsed at that. Why was that? Rook e3. No, I think I hallucinated here. Or did I? It looks absolutely abysmal. This is getting mated. Any other moves are getting mated with the simple operation here, because the knight's covering f3. So okay, it was a neat game, but perhaps an unnecessary complete disaster from white. Let's have a look again. So You would think that the slow positional approach might be the right recipe against this D5 weakness that this peroxy bind has, that black's created in reverse. But statistically, it seems Grischuk is always winning with this system. So I think we need to find on this channel games he's lost because of the D5 weakness, or see why he hasn't lost with the D5 weakness. It's just becoming remarkable that he plays this system with such huge success. But White has been playing a little bit unusually, pardon me, with this H4 move. So he's potentially weakening G4, giving black luxury strategic operations like bishop G4, bishop takes F3 on the cards. But he reinforces the clever stuff he's doing. He's clamping down on B4 and he's reinforcing D5, reinforcing rather C5 as a prelude to the threatened D5, which causes the panic with E4, which weakens D4, which makes bishop G4, bishop F3 more attractive. So there's a big chain reaction of events here if you look at it. So the reinforcing of C5, creating the potential threat of D5. So White locks down on D5, then black uses that strategic exchange to try and get a huge knight on D4. Knight D5 really doesn't help White's cause. If White's got this D4 weakness, maybe he wants this knight around. I can't believe that this move, knight D5, can be that helpful here. Knight B5, even knight B5, that goes into the light square weakness and protects D4 from there. What would be wrong with this? I think this was just an off day for Wang Yue. We've seen subsequently very, very brilliant player, but this looks like an off day and an off move. He's losing pieces which can contest his D4 square here systematically. Once he loses now the dark square bishop, it's looking like a D4 huge disaster. But couple that with the H file, which was totally unnecessary as well. Why not play H5? It's the safer option. But maybe he just didn't see the dangers concretely here. And maybe a lot of grandmasters, if they don't see the dangers concretely, they might think, well, what's this blitz rubbish? You've just opened the line, but prove it. But okay, but even so here already, you know, even bishop F6 for an immediate strategic exchange is liked by the engine. Queen D7, okay. Queen E3, Queen F7. It's brewing an attack on the H file with knights actually shut down the king's escape here. So black actually can't be standing that much better. If White's given time though, let's be fair about this. If White's given time, White might use the H file. So bishop F6. The rooks are connected, ready for this, rook H1, but it's unfortunate timing now that this tactical operation is invoked with, unfortunately, the rook H2 tactic. Otherwise rook H1 would have been on the cards. Just one more move and White will be fine. Let's just demonstrate that. Just one more move casually played and White will be okay, actually, potentially. Even though the knight's on D4, White's potentially okay. So unfortunately, tactically, this didn't help this position after bishop A4, bishop G5, this rook H2. So black's got control now of that H file. Okay, but as I say, Wang Yue's had a brilliant tournament subsequently, and China are doing brilliantly. So it's all experience. Comments or questions on YouTube? In this match in round 4, Russia had beaten China. Actually, there was another loss as well. So the score for that match was 3-1. Comments or questions on YouTube? Thanks very much.